In this video, we are going to see how we can create a news-based website using NewsAPI, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm going to be using Bootstrap to make things easier for you, but feel free to create UI of your choice after you know how to create this type of website. So let's move on to a computer screen. Let's set the development environment and we'll see how to create this app. Let's get started. So before I start creating any folder or any application for that matter, I want to show you how NewsAPI works. So let's fire Chrome and let's see how NewsAPI actually works. So I'm going to fire Chrome and I'm going to show you how NewsAPI works. Okay, so NewsAPI is basically a RESTful API and they have a paid version as well, but we are going to use the free version. And if you want to monetize it or if you want to use it for commercial purposes, you can always go ahead and buy their service. So I guess there is a limit to the number of people who can be served using this API, but let's log in and let's get our API key before we do anything else. So this is going to be our API key and the plan is developer. You should only use the developer plan if your project is in development. If your project is being used in production, you need to upgrade to a paid plan. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's copy this API key on the clipboard and we are going to keep this safe. And please do not use my API key. I'm going to change my API key anyway, but still create your own API key and use it. And that way you'll also learn how to use your NewsAPI account. Let's go to File Explorer now and let's see how I can create a new app. So I'll simply say news app. So this is going to be my app and I'm using VS Code for development. So I'll fire Visual Studio Code and let me wait for VS Code. And okay, so cool. So I'll simply drag this here and VS Code will open this folder. So let me close this folder first. Yes. So I'll say file, open folder, and let me open this folder from here. Okay, so I'll go to code playground, news app, open. So I opened this folder. Okay, cool. Now what I'll do is I'll code my news app here, but before I code my news app, I'm going to code the front end UI of my news app. So simply say index.html and simply start writing code. Now, if you are a person who already know a lot of CSS, then you can use CSS. You can even use Tailwind CSS. UI is something that is in your hands. I'm not going to change the way you decide to code your UI, but I'm going to do it using Bootstrap way. Now, do I like Bootstrap? Yes and no. Yes, because it makes UI development really very simple and it's very fast. I mean, development is very fast. If I decide to create a Navbar in Tailwind CSS, I'll struggle a bit. But if I decide to create a Navbar in Bootstrap, copy, paste, boom, which is why I love Bootstrap. And if you are a beginner, you're going to love even more because as a beginner, you don't want to, get into the hassles of coding a UI. If you are learning something like backend development, where is my VS Code? Here it is. So let me paste it here. Let me save it and install an extension called Live Server. So Live Server is an extension that you can use. Live Server, and I'm waiting for Live Server. So this is the extension that you need to install. You'll see the install button right next to this extension. Just install it, restart your VS Code, and you'll see this Go Live button. Now click this Go Live button and your app will launch in the browser. Now you can see how your app looks in the browser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and look for Navbar. So let me look for Navbar. Here is the Navbar. So in the Bootstrap docs, simply copy the Navbar. That's it. You don't have to do a lot of things. Simply copy the Navbar and paste it here. Let me paste it inside the body. So this is my Navbar. Oh, I lost my API key actually. Or maybe not because I already have it here. I'm going to save this API key somewhere here. I'll keep it here. Okay, but do not save your API key. Okay, you don't have to do that. Simply put it in some environment variable or something. Hello world, let me save this update. So the deal with Live Server is that it automatically refreshes when you make a change in your app. Let me reload it. Yes, this looks good. Now I'll say news app. This is going to be the logo or branding, whatever you want to call it. And this is home. This is going to be sports. This is going to be some other category of news or maybe subcategory of news. Let me do one thing. I don't need a drop down, so I'm going to get rid of this. And I also don't need any disabled li. So let me press Alt Shift down arrow. You know what I'll do? I'll toggle the screencast mode so that you can see what keys I'm pressing. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll start writing some code here. I'll add some script, JavaScript, because I want to write JavaScript here. I'll say console.log hello. Okay, let's see if this works. So this is setting up for development environment, because I need to set up my development environment before I do anything else. So I can see hello here, which is awesome, which means this app works. Nice. So this is sports. This can be weather or something. We'll see what it is. Weather. And this app will basically show all the news. Now to see the news, I need to see some cards, and cards are here in Bootstrap. It's amazing. Okay. Oops. I need to copy this code and let me paste it here in place of hello world. But I need to say news. Welcome to NewsAPI. Okay. So this is how our main div container will look like. So I'll say div.container, a little bit of emmet, and let's see how card looks inside of this. Where's my app? I got lost. Okay, it's here. Awesome. So this is how a card looks in your news app. Now I need to do one more thing. I need to move this h1 inside of the container so that, you know, it looks like this. So the moment I make a change, this is going to automatically reload. I don't have to reload it manually, which is cool. Nice. So this is a card which will show me the news. Awesome. And I need a lot of cards here. So let me copy paste. Let me format the document so that, you know, it looks good. And let me see if I can replicate these cards. So one card, and then Alt Shift down arrow key, 2 cards, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can have as many cards as possible. But you know what? They are being stacked vertically. I don't want that. I want them to stack horizontally. So I'll do one thing. I'll add a div here. I'll say div class is equal to row. So row is a class in Bootstrap, which will help me do that. So let me say div.row. And let me cut this and put it after the last card. Where is the last card? It's here. Okay. And also let me do format document so that it looks good. Awesome. This looks much, much better. But I need to do one more thing. I need to add, say, a class to the card. So I'll say change all occurrences. I want to change all the occurrences of class is equal to card. And I want to add margin. So see what I'm doing here. I'm basically adding my4 to all the cards. So this is the way I use to select all the classes in my VS Code. So this is not a Bootstrap feature. This is a VS Code feature. Anyways, this looks much, much better. But how about we give a padding or, you know, margin horizontally? I think I need to give margin. So I'll say change all occurrences and I'll say mx2. Okay. So mx2, if I add some margin to the X, it looks even better. I think I'm pretty satisfied with how my app looks right now, and I'll move to see how I can use this API to get the news. The next challenge for me now is to fetch the live news, and NewsAPI is going to make things easy for me. So I have my API, I copied my API. Now I'll click on get started and see how this is going to work. So I'll choose JavaScript as the preferred language, and it says a search for articles on the web that mention a keyword of face. Let's see if this works. So it says that if you go to the endpoint / everything, it is going to show you everything. Okay, so they have this JavaScript API, and this is how the response is going to look like. Awesome. So and they have my API key as well here, which is cool. Okay, so let me copy this. And let me see if this is fetching the news or not. And they have some per day limit on the number of times you can fetch, which is fine, man. As long as I'm not using it in production now, as long as I'm not monetizing it, I'm totally fine with that. Let me save it. So we are sorting by popularity, and we are starting from this date, and then this is my API key. Awesome. Let me see if I get any response, and let me open the console and let's see if I have any response. Okay, so this is a promise, and this is the result of the promise, and we have 100 articles here, but I don't need 100 articles, you know. So what I'll do is I will simply what will I do? I will simply show 10 news, and the rest of the news will be fetched later, or maybe I'll fetch all the news. Let's see what you want to do. Let me open the API documentation and see how do I limit the number of total results. There should be something to limit the number of total results. Get the current top headlines for a country or category. There is a lot of stuff going on here. So let me see what is relevant for me and come back. So I found something really amazing on this page. They have something called a page size and the page number. So if I say that the page size is going to be say 20, so I'm saying page size is 20. Let me show you how this works. So I'll say page size is equal to 20, and at the same time I'm going to say page is equal to 2. Okay, so page is equal to 2, and if I say page size is 20, page is equal to 2, this should show me only the articles which are contained in page number 2. So this is something which is awesome, and this is going to help me a lot. But before I do anything, I don't want to exhaust the limit, so let me create a function. So I'll create an async function. So I'll say const fetch news is equal to an async function, and I'll wrap everything inside of this function because I don't want to call this again and again and again. Okay, so I'll say fetching news. Okay, and let me also beautify it a bit. So I'm fetching all the news. I'm saying fetch this dot, then let me await this fetch. So I'll say let a is equal to await this fetch. Then I'll say let response is equal to a.json. Okay, a.json, and I'll say console.log response. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll call this fetch news function and see if I'm getting the response or not. So let me call this function. So it says fetching news and it gives me a promise. Why a promise? Because I'm not awaiting this. Okay, now if I call fetch news, this should show me the news. Okay, awesome. So I have status, I have total results, and then I have the page number. So if total results are 466 and we have 20 results per page, how many pages do we have? 466 divided by 20 is 23.3. And if I do mat.seal of 23.3, I'm going to get 24. So there are 24 pages. Okay, so I'm going to simply say mat.seal, total number of results divided by 20 is going to be the number of pages. Okay, so these are the number of pages. So let me do one thing. Let me return this response and somehow show it in the UI. I'm just thinking, how do I do that? So let me change the title of this page first. I'll say news app. And then what I'll do is, after everything is fetched, I need to change the title of my page. I'll say these many results. I'll say span ID is equal to result count. So this is the ID, and I'll show something like these many results. Okay, and then I also need to change the page somehow. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put two buttons here. I'll say previous page and next page. So button, or rather button.btn primary, and I'll say next page, and I also need previous page. Let me see how this looks. So we need some way to go to the next page and previous page. So why is this class not working? Because I'm not using the btn class. I need to use btn class as well. I'll say previous page, and this looks good. This actually looks good. So I'll say, okay, this is the previous page and this is the next page. Okay, awesome. This looks good. I can make it even better by putting it inside a row, and I need a way to show space between these buttons. I don't know what's wrong here. So I'm going to the search box of Bootstrap and I'm going to search display flex, and let's see if I get something here. So this is a flex box, so I'll say deflex, and also I need to justify. So let me see, how do I justify content? So I'll say deflex, and I need justify content around. Okay, so I'll say deflex first. So instead of row, I'm going to use deflex, and I'll say justify content around. So I'll say justify content around, and let me see how it looks now. So it looks pretty good. I can even do something like this, which is justify content between. No, it's between. I think I need something like center or around, but I think this looks pretty good, so I'm not going to touch it. Okay, this looks good to me. Awesome. So deflex, justify content around, and these are our pages. Awesome. So I need to populate the cards, and also I need a functionality to go back to the next page. So I'll simply say, if somebody clicks on the next page, all you need to do is load the news with an updated page number. Okay, so let me do something like this. I'll say page is equal to 2, but I'll give this page as an argument. So I'll say page is an argument to fetch news, and page is equal to page. Okay, and plus. So we need page as an argument when we are calling the fetch news function. Awesome. So initially page is going to be 1, so we'll call fetch news with argument 1. I'll say fetch news 1, and the moment I do that, what will happen is it will fetch the news, and also it should populate all the cards. Okay, let me delete all these cards because these are dummy cards. I don't want to create dummy cards here. I want to create real cards. So let's remove all these dummy cards, and we'll just have one card inside of our div. So let's keep one card, and we'll use this card to create the HTML, and I'll say the class is content. Okay, I'll say class is content, and we'll somehow populate this str. So this str is a way for me to create the HTML. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to somehow get this response, and wait, I'll do something. I'll say json.stringify response, and you'll think, why am I doing all this? I'll tell you why I'm doing all this. I'm doing this because I don't want to exhaust my API, firstly. Secondly, I'm doing this because I want to first code my app, and then only I want to make requests to the API, which is a good practice, because I'll get the string of response, and then I'll get this response by parsing that JSON. So let me do this, and let me call this as well, and let me see how this turns out. So I'll go to inspect, and I should get this. I'll copy this string, and I'll paste it here. I'll say Control N, and I'll paste it here. So format document. Yes, so this is my JSON. So this is my JSON. Now what I'll do is I'll simply use this JSON as a JavaScript variable, and I'll simply say, you know what? Do not create any fetch request. Just don't create all these fetch requests. Simply use this as a response. I'll say let response is equal to, and we are doing this temporarily. I don't want you to get confused with this. Now let me do something like console.log response, and let me see if it throws an error or something. Does it throw an error? No, it doesn't. So we can see all these results, all these articles. As long as we are using the correct syntax, we should not have any problems. Now I'll simply say I want to iterate this response.articles. I'll say response for, I'll say let item in response.articles, and what I want to do is I want to say str is equal to str plus this string. Okay, so str is going to be blank initially, and inside this loop I want to add more and more HTML to this str string. Remember, we are not using React, but if we use React, these things are automatically taken care of using states and whatnot. So we have source, we have author, we have title, we have description, and we have URL as well. And what else do we have? We have URL to image as well. So awesome. So I'll say src is equal to, I'll say $item dot URL to image. Awesome. And what else do we have? We have the body as well. So I'll say item dot, but before that I need this item dot description. So we have description, right? Yes, we should be having description. We have description, we have published ad, we have source, we have title. So we have title as well. So let's update the title as well. So I'll copy this and we'll update the title here, card title. Okay, so we have title. And what else do we have? So we need to update the href, and this is going to be the URL. So URL to the news, and I need this link to be opened in a new tab. So what I'll do is I'll say target is equal to underscore blank. This is used to open a link in a new tab. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll say you know what, I want to set this HTML. I want to take this HTML and put it inside this, inside of my content. So I'll say document.querySelector content, and I need to say dot inner HTML is equal to str, and let's see if this works. So it said cannot set properties of null, setting inner HTML. So query selector, okay, so dot content, not content. Content is the class, so we need dot. So it says undefined, undefined, undefined. Oh no, why undefined? I don't know. Okay, so I think I need to use for off loop here. Yes, it works now, and it looks amazing, guys. It looks amazing. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. I don't know why this image is not working, but this is not my fault. This is NewsAPI's fault. And we have a lot of news in Chinese. We have a lot of news in English, and great. This just works. Okay. I'm very happy that this works. So how many results do we have? We have a total results, number of results. Okay. So I need to set this inside of my span with, where is my span? Oh no, where is my span? It's not in the navbar for sure. Result count. Okay, so I need to say result count dot inner HTML is equal to, I'll say result count dot inner HTML is equal to result count dot inner HTML is equal to response dot total results, and let's see if it shows the number of results. Yes, it does. Amazing, guys, amazing. This is something that I'm loving now. Okay. Now what else can you do to make it look even more better? You can actually put a card height if you want, but again, that's I leave that on you. You can change the look and feel of this, but this really looks amazing. But this is all the news. This is not just weather news or sports news or some form of news. This shows all the news. Let's see if this link works. Oh yes, it works. It works. So we have created the app. Amazing. We have created this app, Apple TV Plus content. Wow, awesome. There is a way to fetch a particular type of news from NewsAPI, and you need to read the documentation for that. So let's see how do we pull out weather news. So they have a page which tells how to get the top headlines. So you can even have query, you know, Q is equal to something. And this is the keyword of access to search for in the article title and body, which is cool, you know, because we can, do we have a category or something? I'm just curious to know. Domains, comma separated strings of domains. Okay. Sources, comma separated string of identifiers. Do we have something like category or something? I don't know. Author. So in the request object, we can put language. We can put, so let me put language is equal to en, because let's have all the articles in English language. So I'll say language is equal to en. So this is the first thing that I'm going to do. Language is equal to en. If you want some other language, feel free to change the language, but I'm going to do language is equal to en. So these are the domains. I don't know, I don't want to see news from certain domains. I want to see from all the domains, but these are the news sources. Okay, you can even, you know, put the countries, which is fine. Search in, so it says your query should search in. If you want your query to search in only title or only description or only content, it will obey. Okay, now let me change the query is equal to, okay, so query was Apple here. Okay, interesting. Let me get rid of the query, and instead of putting the query here, what I'll do is I will, just a moment, I think I need to do this also. So q is equal to something, and let me say q is equal to query, or just q, and let me put the ampersand here just to be sure that the URL is fine, and I'll say q. So page comma q. So if I put q as blank, or if I put q as sports, do I get sports news? But this is not getting data from the API. Okay, this is not getting the data from API, it's getting it from this string. If you want data from API, you need to uncomment this. Oops. Now let me see how this looks. Yeah, it is fetching the data from the sports domain, which is great, I love it. What if I want to read this? Shah Rukh Khan was sure he was going to be a huge star. How is it sports related news? I don't know. Okay, I think there should be something. So I think there is a sports ground here. I don't know. Awesome. But 99% of the news that I see here are sports news, which is good. Now I want to make this search bar work as well, because it will be very great to, you know, have this search bar working. I'll simply say if somebody clicks on this search bar, they get the news related to this search. But before that, let me uncomment this and comment this part. Okay, awesome. Now what I'll do is I'll say that if somebody clicks on this search button, which is let me give it an ID of search. I'll say add an event listener to search. I'll say search.add event listener, and if somebody clicks on the button, what I want is I want to take the value of this input. So I'll say search input ID is equal to search input. I'll say query is equal to, I'll click here and I'll say let query is equal to search input dot value. So this is going to be the query, and I'll fetch the news related to that query. It's really very simple. It's as simple as you heard it. Query. Awesome. Let me see if it works. I'll say console.log fetching news for Q, page number, page. Let's change this to backticks and let's see the console. Okay, awesome. So if I say star, so fetching news for sports, page number 1. Why sports? Why sports? Why does it not say star? I don't know. So what if I say DD search fetching news for sports, page number 1? I need to see what's wrong here. So if I click on the button, I need to do something like E and then E dot prevent default. You know why am I doing this? I'm doing this because if I click on this button, it is actually submitting the form in which this input is enclosed. So this button and this input tag is enclosed in a form, and I don't want to submit that form. So now if I put some gibberish and say search, it is actually searching for this in page number 1, which is awesome. Okay, great, yeah, great. I love it. I love it. Now I need some way to move to the next page, and also I need some way to make this work. So in order to make this work, all I need to do is, you know what, I need to comment this out and uncomment this, and this will work. So let me pull some data. Let me say, you know what, I want to see Bollywood news, and yes, this is the Bollywood news for you. What if I want to see weather news? I'll say weather. I say weather and click on search and nothing happens. Why? I don't know. Is there anything I'm doing wrong here? Fetching news for sports, page 1. Fetching news for weather, page 1. Okay, so it's showing this for the weather news. I don't know why. I don't know why it's showing this for the weather news. As many as I have no regrets. Let's say politics. Politics. Okay, awesome. So it works. You can figure out how this API works, okay? And you can have news of your choice. You can have keywords of your choice. You can even have these buttons show the sports news or weather news or whatever you like. You got the point. Okay, now I'll show you how to go to the next page. But before we go to the next page, I need to, change something. Let me uncomment this. And also let me remove this console log. I don't want this console log. This is creating issues. I don't want to, log all this response to the console. So let's create a variable called current query. What exactly is the current query? Current query is the variable for which we have the news. So it's sports initially. Okay, so I'll say sports sports, and I'll put it here as well. Here, current query. Okay, now if somebody is making a search by clicking the button, I'll say make current query as that query. Okay, I'll say current query is equal to query, and let's move it here, and we'll fetch the news with query. Awesome. Now when somebody clicks on the next page, this button, I'll say href is equal to, or rather I'll simply say if somebody clicks on this button, you should fetch the next news. So I'll say id is equal to next, and id is equal to previous. id is equal to previous. So I'll say prev dot, I'll have the event listeners actually. So let me have two event listeners. I'll say prev dot add event listener click. If somebody clicks on this button, what we'll do is query will be the same. Query is going to be the current query, but instead of doing page 1, we'll say page is equal to page plus 1. Okay, and also let me make a variable called current page, current query and current page, and this is going to be 1 initially. So whenever I am clicking on the next button, so prev and next, whenever I'm clicking on the next button, I need to say current page is equal to current page plus 1. Okay, and if I'm clicking on the previous button, I'll say current page is equal to current page minus 1. But I want this to happen only if current page is greater than 0. Okay, sorry, greater than 1. If current page is greater than 1, then only we can go to the previous page, else we cannot go to the previous page. So if somebody clicks on the next button, we want to update the page, and the query is going to be the same, and we are going to fetch the news with current query. Okay, awesome. And if somebody clicks on the previous button, we want to do the same thing. So I'll say current page is equal to current page minus 1. Current query is going to be the same, and I want to fetch news for the current query. Let me check it again. So if current page is greater than 1, we want to say current page is equal to current page minus 1. So we want to reduce the current page because it is already greater than 1. So if we are on page 2, page 2 becomes page 1, and we fetch the query for current page comma current query, not 1. Current page comma current query. Awesome. Also, we want to update the current page. Let me also update the page here, or let it be. Let me go to my API response and comment this out, and I want to use this, which means that I want to fetch the live news. Let me say something like I don't know, sports, and the first news that we are seeing related to the sports is, okay, so I've made some mistake somewhere. So it says fail to load the resource. Why? I don't know. Fetching news for sports page number 1. Okay, so this is the sports news. Awesome. Bill Hamlings faces long recovery. This is the first news. Let's click on next and see if this changes. It doesn't changes. Let me see what's wrong. So it says query is not defined. Query is not defined. What's wrong here? So current query is equal to query. No, query is going to be the same. Query is going to be the same. If I click on next, is it fetching the news for me? Yes, it changes. So the controversial man cat dismissal. If I want to read this news, I can always go to, why are we calling it go somewhere? I think read full article or something. I should call it read article, read more or something. Ahref is equal to this. Let me toggle word wrap. Oops. Toggling word wrap is creating a lot of problems for me because I have a really long JSON here, but that should be fine. That should not be a problem. Where is my string? This is my string. Okay, so instead of saying go somewhere, I'll say read article. Is there any other placeholder which is still present? No, there isn't any other placeholder, which is fine. So this is the first page. This is the next page. And I can keep on navigating to the next page until I reach, say, I think 200 pages, which is a lot. Also, you need to put a check when you are on the last page. You should not allow user to move to the next page. So this is something that you need to do. You can do it yourself. I'll put it as homework for you, and you need to complete it and tell me in the comment section that you finished it. Okay, so how many of you guys are finishing this homework? Tell me in the comment section. But let me revamp the UI a bit. So we don't have any margin top bottom here. I need to add margin top bottom here. So I'll say MY4 because this page was not looking good. Now it looks good. Yeah, we have some spacing here and here. Awesome. Let's see how this looks on the phone. If I change this to phone, it is actually very responsive on the phones. So if you want to see how it looks on your iPhone or on your Android devices, this is how it's going to look. Awesome, man. This really looks good. So awesome. There are a lot of improvements which can be made to this app, and I want to leave all those improvements to you. So feel free to change this app, make it look better. Now we are going to host this app. But before we host this app, let me make some more changes here. The very first change that I want to make here is I want to remove this card, this demo card from this app, and I want to keep this div empty because anyway we are changing the content of this div using JavaScript. Okay, and also I want to change this to ampersand LT semicolon and ampersand GT semicolon because this is the way to go. Ampersand GT semicolon, and yes, it makes no change, but again this is the way to go. Now let's see if I am able to see stars. So I can see all the stars here. What if I say music? Yes, I can see articles related to music. What if I say sports or cricket? I'll see articles related to cricket, which is great, man. I mean, I'm seeing all the articles. It looks pretty good. And now let's go and host it. I'm very excited to host this app. You might think that this is actually looking a bit off because some of the descriptions are long, some of the descriptions are short. Let me limit the description with the number of characters. I think that will help a lot. So instead of saying item.description, I'll say item.description.slice. Let's take 0 to 23 of these, and instead of doing triple dots here, I'll do triple dots here. It looks pretty good, but again, I need to limit the title as well to a certain number of characters. So let me limit the title to a certain number of characters, say 23 characters, and I'm limiting everything with some certain number of characters. I also need to give width and height to this image. So let me give height to this image. I'll say height is equal to say 234. It's actually playing with the aspect ratio because we have a certain width. So what I'll do is I'll keep on playing with this height until it looks good. So I'll say 184, 184. It looks good. It looks just fine now. Okay, let's not play more with it. And also let me add some more characters to the description, because description should look good. So this is how it looks. Our app is not looking off anymore, which is a good news. But again, there are a lot of factors which will change the height of this card. You can always use CSS or even Bootstrap to make this work. You can figure out, you can go to Bootstrap documentation, and there is a lot you can do. But at this point, I'm interested in hosting this app. So how do I host this app? Now there are two ways to host this app. The first way to host this app is to create a Linode, and inside the machine, I'll simply use Nginx server and put these files inside that server. Now I want to tell you something. Before we host this app, I want to give you this disclaimer, and you should have the right expectation before hosting this. So NewsAPI is paid for production. Okay, you cannot use any other domain other than localhost to fetch the news at this point. So you need to buy the paid plan if you want to fetch the news. But having said that, I'll show you how to host this app. So let me go to linode.com and let me log into my account, and we are going to host this app. I'm really very excited. So let me create a Linode. So I'll create a Linode. I'll use Ubuntu 20 LTS, 22 LTS. Okay, select a region. I'll use US Central, Dallas, and let's use dedicate 4 GB. Enter a password. I'll enter a password, enter a tag, and let's create the Linode. Now I need to install something called Nginx, because this is a static website which I want to host. So I'll say how to host a static site using Nginx. Okay, or maybe using Apache. You can even use Apache, you know, Apache or Nginx, anything work. Apache. So it's really very easy. Let me see if there is any Linode guide for this. So deploy a static site using Hugo and object storage. No, I want to use Apache 2 at this point. So let's see how do we install Apache. So you can enter the machine, run these commands, and again, it is really very easy to host a static site using Apache 2. I'll show you. So this is provisioning my Linode. I'll wait for this to provision, and we have just one file to serve, you know. Really very simple, you know, piece of cake. What I'll do is, in order for my website to look good, I will remove this comment, and I'm going to comment this, control/ and this. Why am I doing this? Because I know that my Linode is not going to fetch news live. So I need to hard code the news. Why is it not going to fetch the news live? Because NewsAPI is paid for production. Okay. And if you want to buy the paid plan, you can always do that. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll install Apache 2. So I'll say sudo, or no, I don't even need sudo because I'm already inside the root account. So I'll say apt update. Okay. And then I'll copy this command and paste it to install the Apache 2. So I'll say Apache 2 sudo apt-get or sudo apt install Apache 2. So let me run this command. So apt install Apache 2. Yes, I want to install it. Let me make it a little bigger so that you can see. And then I'll wait for it to finish. And in the meantime, I'll open this link. This is the link that I want to open. In fact, this is an IP address, and yes, Apache 2 works. Awesome. But what I want to do is I want to serve my index.html instead of this index.html. So I'll show you how to do it. I'll tell you something. If you go to cd/var/www and you list all the contents, you'll see this HTML folder. This is where our website, this particular page is being hosted. Let me do ls yet again, and let me remove this index.html file. Why am I removing it? Because I want to create it again. So I'll say vim index.html, and I'll copy all this and I'll paste it here. Right click, paste, and yes, it is pasting all the text. Now I'll press escape : WQ to exit Vim. and it is saved, and I'll say sudo service Apache to restart the Apache server, and boom, we have our website hosted. Now you can have a domain pointed to this IP address, and this is how you can host it in production. If you have your paid account, you can always use NewsAPI in production. So this is how you can create a beautiful news website using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, NewsAPI, and Linode. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to monetize it somehow, and if you want to buy a paid account, you can go to newsapi.org. But overall, tell me if you like this video or not. I want your input in the comments. Thank you so much guys for watching this video, and I will see you next time.